Okay.
Thomas, thank you for being with us. So last year, you called me up, or actually, I think you connected with me on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and I was staying at Michael's Hotel across the street from yours, and you said, I want to come over and get a chance to meet you. And I jumped at the opportunity, and we started talking, and you told me you were this happened in 1974, first concierge ever in the United States. How did that happen?
Well, that is true, and thank you very much for having me on this distinguished panel. Um, I had been fortunate enough to work in Europe as a young man, and when I say young, I was 23 years old, and literally fresh off the boat. I sailed to London or to England on the old Queen Elizabeth, the old Queen Elizabeth, and I went to work at the Ritz Hotel in London, and I knew what a concierge was, but I'd never encountered one before because in the USA, that job did not exist. So, arriving at the Ritz, I was presented to the concierge people, and I met Victor and Mr. Murphy and the other members of the team, and I was just taken aback. I said, "That's the job I want to do. Making dreams come true, getting these people booked on whatever they want to be booked on, getting them into the finest restaurants, taking care of Lord Carnarvon's birds that he just shot, have the chef prepare them." And I remember Lord Carnarvon once, he'd had a pretty good round of shooting and he had some extra birds left over. So he presented one to each of the guys who worked at the front desk, which included me. I worked at the front desk there. And it's like, thanks a lot, my lord. I'll have Cook take care of this tonight. Yeah, right. We didn't have our own household staff to take the little, bird shot out. Anyway, I gave it to the chef as a present, thus cementing our relationship. Anyway, the bottom line of all of this is that I was so thrilled to be able to be working in such a august company, and for some reason, Victor, the head concierge, took me under his wing, and every day at 4, I'd go back to the little tiny office behind the concierge desk and we'd have tea. And Victor would regale me with stories of the things he'd done. And, how a guest wanted to have a helicopter, wanted to purchase one immediately. 3 hours later, there was a helicopter, and he lived in Ireland. They flew it right over. Well, Victor, the secret of that was Victor happened to live next to a good buddy of his who was a helicopter salesman. So there you go. It's who you know. I moved to Paris, worked at the Hotel Lancaster there, and the same situation repeated itself. And then I came back to the States after a few years, ready and willing and wanting to be a concierge, but heck, no job existed. And I found myself at the Fairmont, hired as an assistant manager. And one day, not long after I'd started, I must have been 3 months there, Richard Swig, the owner, comes up to me and says, "Mr. Wolfe, I know you have some European experience." "Yes, that's right, Mr. Swig. I worked in London, Paris. And you got some languages?" I said, "Yes, sir. Je parle français, you have l'espagnol, and a few others that I can't mention now." And he said, "I'm trying to start a concierge program here, and nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about." And I thought, boy, you talk about opportunity knocking. I mean, that was it. Presented to me on a silver platter. I said, "Mr. Swig, I'll do it. I'm your man. Yes. Let me think about it. I'll do it." And from that day forward, I was the first concierge, and it made for this great learning curve, not only for me, well, I kind of knew what it was, but for the public, for the staff, for the people in the city. I mean, even the restaurants didn't know what a concierge was, unless it was a French restaurant, And so that is how that started. But I had a larger dream. I wanted to, because once the publicity came, other hotels wanted to have concierge service. The Clift Hotel suddenly had a concierge. The Mark Hopkins suddenly had a concierge. And I wanted to have the network, the Clé d'Or, the Golden Keys Society. You see the concierge with the golden keys in his or her lapel, that is a member of the Clé d'Or. Golden Keys. I wanted to have our own section, our own USA section. And by golly, with a lot of work and perseverance and a lot of help, in 1978, we were received as the 19th member section of L'Éclat d'Or. So that's the kind of the short version of how I got started in my vocation.
And you left the U.S. and actually went to Japan and kind of redid this again. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was deja vu all over again in 1985 when I went to go live in Japan. And here again, the Japanese, famous for their service. I mean, what country can you think of that gives as good service as a really fine Japanese hotel? And I convinced them that it would be a really good thing if they had someone. The way I presented it was, you need someone to take care of your foreign clientele. And so it took a long, long time to get permission to work, but after a year and a half, I came there as the very first concierge in Japan. Everybody said, you'll never do that. You'll never learn the language. You'll never be accepted. You'll always be an outsider. 5 years later, when I came back, having been extremely successful and speaking the language fluently, I'm very proud of that. At the age of 40, I learned Japanese. That's your brain doesn't want to do that at that age. But it just goes to show you, never listen to the naysayers, or listen to them and nod wisely, and then you go do your own thing, because you're going to succeed whatever it is. That's what I preach to the young people, but I think I'm preaching to the choir here.
So 1974, you started at Fairmont.
That's right.
Spent a number of years there, a number of years in Japan, back to the U.S., back to the Fairmont. What in all those years is the most unique request you've ever had?
Well, I guess, I've gotten to the point where there's no such thing as a unique request. It's just a request. I mean, you want 500 dozen roses. Let me just show you the bill first. And but the
how much is 500 dozen roses?
you see, it depends on the kind of rose you want. Wink, wink. There we are. Truthfully, the one request that I do think is the one that I remember the most, and it qualifies as being probably the most outrageous and at the same time the most memorable. A guest came up to me and he had kind of a list of things that needed to be done. This was back when airline tickets we were able to put stickers on them. Anybody remember those days? That was great. Oh, you want to change your flight, sir? Sure. Here we go. Let's change the flight number. Let's put a sticker on there. Have a nice flight, sir. Thanks. Well, I had to fix his airline ticket. I had to book a restaurant reservation for him, fix the heel on his wife's shoe, and a few other relatively mundane tasks or everyday tasks. And as he started to walk away, he turned around and said to me, "Oh, and I want a Ferrari GTO too, please." And I said, "Any color preference for you, sir?" And and he said, "Red." And I said, "Oh, good. Ferrari made a lot of red cars, So, and I'm probably one of the few people who knew exactly what a Ferrari GTO was, because I love old cars and mechanical things. And it's the kind of car that you could drive to work every day, and then on the weekend you could take it to the racetrack. These days, and he said, I don't want to pay more than $6 million for it. And I didn't be a wise guy. I could have said, "Is that francs or dollars?" No, because he was Swiss. But anyway, I got him his Ferrari, and he and the Ferrari lived happily ever after. So that was definitely slightly out of the ordinary.
What about he and the wife?
Yeah, that's a good question. Didn't see her.
So the last time you and I spoke, we both talked a lot about that. The role of the concierge is probably the single best example of what separates what we do in hospitality from people who just give accommodations. And there's a lot of tech firms, even many of them started around this area, that have become fairly proficient in providing a place for someone to lay down. But the concierge in a hotel puts us in a different place, a very special place. Talk a little bit about that and why you think it's important that we don't lose that.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's a different level of service. It's having a best friend in any city that you go to already there in place, who knows everybody and knows where to go and what to do, and identifiable by those golden keys on their lapels, because that's our international uh, association of hotel professional concierge. In order to get into that, it's not like joining the AAA. No offense to the AAA, not taken, I hope. Uh, you have to be seconded and proposed by two existing members. You have to go through a grueling process. It takes about a year and a half, and there's an exam. And of course, at any moment in time, you could just be knocked out, no reasons given. We suggest you apply again in a year. Okay, at which point you might get the same result again, but people will do that. Because to become a clay door concierge means that you are really dedicated to your craft. You are the person that the client is going to be going to again and again and again. And for those who like to say, well, that department is not really a revenue producing department, Tom, I say, says who? Because really and truly, that client who comes back year after year, who calls you on the phone when he wants to make his reservation, that's the client who is the one we want. That's our bread and butter. Those repeat clients who come back, who love us because we're the Fairmont, or because, I don't say love it because I'm there, but I'm able to get that process started of getting them to come back again and again, and teaching the new clients just what it is that we do. Because you can read all the guidebooks in the world, you can do all of the I embrace high tech. I have all kinds of things that's automated that I can send out to my guests. But when it comes right down to it, that consultation, that one on one where you're speaking with somebody and speaking from your heart, I live here in this beautiful city. Whether it's raining or the sun is shining, it's always a beautiful day here. And I want to share that with the people who come here from the bottom of my heart. I really do. And that's the value of the concierge. That is the person who's going to have that client's interests at heart.
We're almost out of time. A couple of last very quick questions. If I
Zero.
come to your hotel, luckily I'm in control of the clock, so I get to ignore it. If I come to the Fairmont and I say, all right, I want some really good seafood in the Nom Hill area, where are you going to send me?
Oh, that's pretty easy. I'd probably opt for one of the old school places. Tadich Grill. It might be popular. Thank you. I'm getting some nods from the audience.
I had lunch scheduled there today and missed my lunch, so I was really upset about that.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah, the Tadich is great. And another one that's very similar to Tadich, but on a much smaller scale, is kind of around behind the Bank of America building. That's Sam's. Sam's Grill is very good, too. I like these old school places where you can go in there, and if you're wearing a hat, which I like to do, I didn't wear one today, but I have, the 1940s kind of Sam Spade hat. There's a hook there, you just put it right on there, and the waiters still wear tuxedos. I like that old school San Francisco flavor. We have John's Grill. Many of you probably know that. That's another fabulous old school place. That's where Dashiell Hammett wrote the story, the Maltese Falcon. In fact, they have a whole shrine dedicated to him right there. So that's in my patch. That would be where I'd be giving you the nudge to go to.
I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
Go ahead.
So when I come to San Francisco, which I try to get here as much as I can, one of my favorite places is a little bit less than what you've been describing.
Sotomare?
No. Have you ever sent anyone to the saloon?
The saloon, that's on Grant Avenue, right opposite the Cafe Trieste.
It is. It's been around a while.
Yes, it has been. It would have to be a very narrow niche of client that I would send there.
So, cash only, $5 at the door if the guy's awake. Blues music only.
Right.
American beer.
What's not to like?
Exactly. The floors are a little dirty, but that's okay.
Yeah, and if you get tossed out of there, you can always go over to the Cafe Trieste across the street. And get.
If you get tossed out of there, that's the end of the night.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thomas, look, you're an icon and a treasure to our industry. Thank you for all that you've meant to everyone who understands what hospitality really means, and to everyone in this room for spending some time with us today.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be with you, Chip. Thank you.
Thank you.